So what I am working on this particular set of romances is to make sure that the dynamics actually come across, not just what I think I'm doing, but actually is effective enough and quick enough, because every measure is a different dynamic marking. So here's a repeat. So usually I would take that much and try that a couple of times. As you can tell, the motion of this piece starts from the very beginning and is established right away by the piano accompaniment. And if we don't rehearse with the pianist, we'll be in for a big surprise when we actually perform it. So it's very important that we consider what's going on in the piano part as well when we learn the piece. It's because when the composer, this is Untitled Dvorak's work, when he composed, he did not isolate violin part and piano part. It's 1. So 1 unit that he's thinking about, and just simply put the voicing to different instruments. So it will make sense that if this were to be performed in a string quartet, it will also work. So distributing the piano part and the violin part between 4 string players, 2 violins, viola, and cello, which I'm not quite surprised because Dvorak himself was also a viola player. He hang out with a lot of violinists during the time he was working in France and later moved to the United States, and that he had also composed multiple string quartets, symphonies, violin concertos, so he understands very clearly what the string instruments are capable of doing. So what we are seeing here is from the first measure, it's a crescendo. Second measure is a decrescendo. From the very start of the movement, and it says piano with expression. So in the piano soft context, however, creating this sort of emotion right from the beginning. Now, 2 measures later, it's a crescendo to a forte. So it should not feel the same, it should not sound the same, because this is a much more dramatic crescendo. But the loud forte does not stay too long either. Only sustain for a measure, then we are down to a diminuendo. There's no pattern of this crescendo decrescendo because every marking is different. Now, it's also good to consider Dvorak being composer of the middle, right in the middle of Romantic period. The idea is really to evoke emotions, to be free of expressing themselves. So here is a very detailed, specific marking, every measure, every line, and every marking is very detailed also. So even if I decide to change bowings, it was to serve that purpose. Now, let's see. Now, many times when it says pianissimo, for example, how many places sets pianissimo in this one movement? 3 spots. 1 in the first section before the first repeat. The second time is when the theme repeats itself in the middle of the second section. The third time was the very, very last 4 measures, which is kind of like a cadencing into, disappearing. Now, before I decide how loud the loud needs to be, I actually will pay attention to how soft the pianissimo is. Because when you're talking about dynamics, it's all relative to each other. If you can create the pianissimo that is very, very soft, even there are many different forms of soft, right? Soft as in dynamic context, not in the temperament or the character of it. But in this case, yes, soft, but still with that rhythm going at the background. So, so it's soft, dynamic volume in the context of very rhythmic still with motion. And if I can create that, then I can decide how loud my loudest. And in fact, what is the loudest point other than forte? I think forte is the loudest point. And the loudest one will have a point to it, sforzando. And that also means you have to release right after sforzando. So I will see if I can give it a try and bring out all those contrasts. So given that we have the softest pianissimo and the loudest forzando forte, then piano will mean something. Mezzo forte will mean something now. So notice that the beginning is piano, it's not mezzo piano, it's not pianissimo, because it still needs to be heard. It's the beginning statement of the entire set of 4 romantic pieces. So how can I make this special, right? So I'm just expressing all the thoughts that I will be thinking of when I am preparing this piece. Perhaps this time is much better. I feel the effects of these dynamic changes, and that they are also done in a rhythmic manner. It's important that we don't spill over with these expressiveness that we lost count, or we didn't keep with the powers. And perhaps that's why Dvorak had put that rhythm, almost drum-like, percussive-like rhythm at the background, so to keep this going. Otherwise, it's so easy for, I guess, any violin player to sort of drag behind. Yeah. Now, of course, the mistake of forgetting to repeat is a good thing that this is a rehearsal. So we make all sorts of mistakes during rehearsal, and hopefully we will remember not to do it when it's a live performance. But I'm overall very happy with how it comes out. But one point to bring out, this is not a new piece to me. I have performed it multiple times. That's why it sounds kind of decent now. But a lot has actually gone into, a lot of slow practice actually have gone into this. This is actually a great piece to work on shifts. What we were working on in the scale, the one finger shift on one string, all those shifting will be applying here. So it's actually a great piece to work on shifting and bow stroke. One thing about bow stroke is elements that create sounds. There are 4 things that contribute to the sound. And I think I've mentioned before in previous sessions. But the 4 elements are bow speed, bow length, bow pressure, and the sounding point. So of course, bow length means how much bow you're using or how little bow. The more bow usually means more sound, little bow, small sound. If you're using fast bow speed, you're moving the bow fast. Usually that means creating more sound, and a slower bow speed usually means less sound. By sounding point, it means the point that the bow head contacts the string. Whether it's closer to the bridge, which is more friction, usually means more sound. Away from the bridge, closer to the fingerboard, means less friction, usually means softer. Last is applying pressure. Pressure is not used to force the sound out. Pressure is used to sustain whatever bow stroke you are using and to amplify it. So for example, in this particular movement, there's a lot of variation of bow length that I use. It's because I use less bow and then increase into faster and bigger bow that creates this instant crescendo. Do the reverse, you got decrescendo. But when I am at a point that I cannot move the bow fast because it's a long note, and I think Ben had raised this question before, then sustaining the note to maintain a forte would require some pressure to keep the bow in place. But also, the pressure is used to help sustain the sounding point so that the bow doesn't slide away from the sounding point. And that is, for me, the only reason to add pressure. Now, if you add pressure beyond that or before considering variation on bow speed, bow stroke, or bow length, the problem is the strings reacts to pressure, and obviously strings are reacts differently because of the thickness of the string. If you're in the lower 2 strings, of course they react a little slower. If you are on the higher 2 strings, especially on the E string, it's so sensitive, any little pressure will sort of stops the vibration of the string. Also, if you want the string to react quickly, in this case, in this particular movement, all the dynamics have to be so sort of sensitive and responding so quickly. Anytime you press on the string, it also will take time for the string to react. You probably will miss already the dynamic marking because of that extra time that takes for you to release your hand off the pressure and to add pressure, then to allow the string to respond to that as well. Simply not enough time in this case. I would say if you are playing something like a largo, largo movement, yes, perhaps pressure will be absolutely important. Now, in this case, I decide that perhaps dividing the bow in 3 sections will help with creating dynamics. So one little example, one little drill or exercise you can use to practice bow speed or bow length is simply, remember when we work on one element, we isolate everything else. So we, let's say, take a very simple note, B on A string. Half a bow of slow bow and half a bow of fast bow. So slow bow. When you get to the middle, speed up. And then you do same thing, you start at the tip. Slow bow to the middle, speed up. And you hear the dynamic change right away. I did not press, I did not, simply move the bow with different speed. Slow. All right, so, and then I divide the bow in 3. So how do I know? One is to eyeball 3 parts. Another way is use a sticker. Simply put it on the bow, 3 parts. That way you know where the 1/3 is. Another way is I did a lot of my practice in front of a mirror, so you actually see in the mirror where the 1/3 is. So you can do fast, slow, fast like that. Slow down the middle 1/3. Or reverse it, slow, fast, slow. So remember, there's no pressure applied, and you will better find where the sounding point is best for this sort of exercise. Because for the bow to be able to move quickly adjusting to the bow speed, you do need to be quite away from the bridge. So perhaps a sounding point is a little closer to the fingerboard will allow the bow to travel faster at a fast speed and slow speed, alternating in quick succession. And then there's also one very good exercise of adjusting contact point. So you start very slow, again, no pressure, by the bridge, away to the fingerboard, back to the bridge. So again, slow bow, you will find that because of the friction by the bridge, you gotta move the bow slow. Move the sounding point away and bring it back. So this is 3, and then you can divide the bow into 4 sections. So, 6 sections like that. So, one trick to identify the middle point of the bow is when your bow is in the middle point, your forearm, I don't know if you can see, but your forearm will technically be in a right angle, 90 degree. Your bow arm elbow will form a 90 degree. So that helps to gauge when you can simply feel, but again, practice in front of the mirror so you actually see what's happening with the bow, the point of the bow you're at. Sometimes we think we are at the middle point, we think we are playing a third of the bow, but we actually way past it, and that happens so often with students. Use a mirror so you can see yourself. Eventually you can feel what 1/3 of the bow will feel like, a quarter of the bow will feel like, or the middle of the bow will feel like. Then by that point you're ready for rehearsals and performance. So I like to use the analogy of cooking. You see the seasoned chef master, an 1/8 cup of flour or oil or salt or whatever that they need. They don't use the measuring cup because they already know how much is 1/8 of the cup, a quarter of the cup, half the cup. They use it so much. But I'm sure as beginner, we all use that measuring cup, and even comes with a set of different sizes. And one time I actually tried to prove to myself, the spoon, measuring spoon that says 1/8, is it really 1/8? So I scoop and put it in the measuring cup just to prove to myself. Sometimes when you use a different unit, a spoon and a cup, they look so different. Just to convince yourself that the 1/8 of a cup is this is how it looks like if you put it in the measuring cup. So I use that approach with playing the violin. It looks like a certain way from my angle. It looks a certain way in the mirror, and I actually measure out the bow. So that way, there's several ways to sort of confirm to yourself that, and also listen carefully to what comes out from the violin. Is it exactly what you're looking for? If it's not, find out what it is that doesn't look right or sound right.